Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into one of the most powerful techniques in the Agile world for turning great ideas into software that actually works: user stories. So here's a problem every single team runs into, right? You've got stakeholders with these huge ideas, really complex needs, and just lists and lists of requests. How in the world do you translate all of that into something your developers can actually understand and build without totally losing the original point? Well, the answer is all about shifting your focus to solve the right problem. And that's exactly where user stories come in. They're such a powerful tool because they completely change the conversation from being about technical specs to being all about user value.
And you can see that shift in thinking right here. The old way, with traditional requirements, was super technical and prescriptive. It would literally tell developers how to build something. User stories, they just flip that whole script. By focusing on what the user needs, you give the team the freedom and flexibility to figure out the best way to build it.
So why are they such a big deal in Agile? Well, for one, they force you to think about actual business value. I mean, if you can't explain the benefit to a user, maybe you shouldn't be building it, right? Plus, they're written in just plain English that everyone can understand, from your stakeholders all the way to your testers. And finally, because they're so small and focused, they're incredibly easy to prioritize and move around as you learn new things.
You know, the real power of a user story comes from its brilliantly simple structure.
You've probably seen this template a million times, as a I want to so that. But its simplicity is pure genius. As a tells you who this is for. I want to describes what they're trying to do. And the most important part, the so that, explains why it even matters. That why is your business value, and it guides literally every single decision the team makes from that point on.
And this is a perfect example of that formula in action. It's so clear. We know who it's for, the customer. We know what they want, to track their order, and we know exactly why it's a good idea. They don't have to call support, which saves them a ton of time and, saves the company money. It's focused, it's clear, it's perfect.
Okay, so that's the theory, but how does this really work in the real world? How do you take some big, messy, complex request that came out of a workshop and turn it into these nice, clean, actionable stories?
All right, check this out. This is a pretty typical request. On the surface, it sounds kind of straightforward, but wow, there is a lot packed in here. You've got routing logic, you've got notifications, you've got data displays. If you just hand this over to a developer, it's just full of questions. Who sets these rules? What does the notification even look like? So, here's how we make that manageable. That one big request is actually 4 completely different stories for different types of users. First, an admin has to be able to set up the routing rules. Then, a handler needs to get notified that there's a new claim, and they also need a way to see all the details. And of course, a customer has to be able to submit the claim in the first place. See? By breaking it down like this, we create clarity, focus, and small, deliverable chunks of value. Okay, but a user story all by itself, it isn't quite enough. How do we know when the story is actually finished and, works the way it's supposed to? That's where we have to get really clear on what done looks like. And we do that using something called acceptance scenarios, often written in this given, when, then format. Given basically sets the stage. When describes the action the user takes, and then defines the result we expect to see. This structure is just a super clear, testable way to describe how the feature should behave in all sorts of different situations.
So let's circle back to our order tracking story. This table shows 5 different scenarios for that single story. We've got the standard case, the happy path, but then what happens when the order is out for delivery? Or what happens when it gets delayed? It even covers weird edge cases, like what if it's an in-store pickup, where tracking just isn't available. These scenarios get rid of all the guesswork.
And ultimately, when you put these two things together, a really simple user story and these crystal clear acceptance scenarios, you create something incredibly powerful. You create the foundation for a really great conversation. I mean, these scenarios are what really complete the user story by adding all that necessary detail. They just eliminate uncertainty by defining exactly how the system should act, which, by the way, makes testing way more straightforward. And, most importantly, they get everybody, the business analyst, the developer, the tester, all on the same page about what success actually looks like.
And that really brings us to the final big idea here. User stories were never meant to be rigid contracts. They are invitations to have a conversation. So you have to ask your team, are your requirements shutting down discussion, or are they the thing that's actually starting it? If you want to dive a lot deeper into this, check out The Essential Business Analyst, Mastering Business Analysis in the AI Age. We've linked it in the description. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, it would be awesome if you hit that like button and subscribe for more.